What's good, folks? It's Frame here with a new Warframe video, taking a look at the new Nyx changes, or should I say Eleanor. So let me go over the abilities and the new passive. So Nyx gains 40% crit chance on her primary and secondary weapons for every enemy that is confused. That means if they're procced with radiation, you get bonus crit chance. Radiation is the confused status effect. You can easily get that by applying your third ability or having anything on your loadout that can proc radiation. So your sentinel weapons and her abilities. Mind control is still the same. Take control of a target to fight alongside you. The changes made to it were so that it's a bit more aggressive, but I barely noticed that. The damage scales with the enemy level and the damage you've dealt to it. It takes into account the weapon's base damage, multi-shot, crits, faction damage, weak point damage, meaning headshots, and any damage over time that was applied to the target before the mind control, because any new procs will not be taken into account to the damage conversion. All their attacks will proc radiation to then proc confusion to boost your passive. And the mind control target also counts as being confused. So let's demonstrate this. We have two enemies right here. If we mind control right now, at base, it's just going to deal that much damage. As you can see, that target right there is confused, and you can see on the top right, we get bonus crit chance. We control this guy. And now, as you can see, it's dealing way more damage. If we strip that enemy's armor... Bro, where you going? Yeah, the AI still sucks. What can I say? They said it's more aggressive, but yeah, it's still stupid. However, if you put the Mind Freak augment, it does increase the damage and improves the attack speed, meaning all their attacks from fire rate and melee attacks, and its movement speed. And now this does scale with strength. So, for example, if you put Blind Rage right here, notice the multiplier increases. So if you want to build for a minion build, then yeah, you definitely need Mind Freak. They can actually boost the damage of your minions. Right now, let's put Blind Rage and Intensify. Spawn an army here. All right, let's go. Look at that damage. Yeah. It's killing, boys. There we go. Woo! It stopped attacking. Oh no, it's attacking. There we go. Now let's move on to Psychic Bolts, because this change was actually substantial. Now, it still does the same thing where it strips enemy armor and shields while also slowing down infested movement speed. However, now you can steal overguard, shields, and armor for yourself. We spawn some Xmas units here. We use our Psychic Bolts. We got some overguard. And of course, the overguard stolen scales with strength. So for example, if we go with Blind Rage right now, we got 258 strength because I do have Archon Shards. Don't worry about that. And now I steal 1,200 overguard. So if you do use this augment, that increases the amount of projectiles from 6 to 9. Nice. You can hit more enemies. But to be honest, it's not really worth it. Her augments are still mid. You can just spam this ability once or twice. It's fine. But at the same time, we have this new Arcane, where if you gain 3,000 or more overguard, you release a burst of viral. It's not the greatest, but it's useful in some situations. So right there, we got a bunch of viral spread. The defense shred does scale with the duration. But of course, since they're Xmas, it doesn't last as long. Now moving on to Chaos. This is pretty much a brief stun and a radiation primer. That's it. You prime enemies with radiation, and now they attack themselves. But the best part is, you get your passive triggered. Now I have 200% crit chance. That's all Chaos does. And finally, Absorb. Absorb is still not the greatest ability. It's still slow, but you can now move while you're floating in your bubble and doesn't drain energy over time, but it has a set duration. So within that duration, enemies shoot your bubble, you absorb that damage, and then you unleash it for the big kabloomies. Unfortunately, the kabloomies aren't that great, and it only feels good in higher level environments because the damage converted scales with enemy level. So the higher the enemies, the more damage you dish out. At the same time, if the enemies have armor, you're not really going to be one-shotting anything in sight. So when you activate the ability, you can now move. You're not stationary anymore. And as you can see, there's a duration at the bottom and doesn't drain energy over time. It still has a long-winded animation, even though with casting speed. So let's strip some armor. You can prematurely detonate it. And boom, you knock them down. And after that, you do get a base damage buff for your guns. Not melee, just your guns. And then, unleash. As you can see, the damage is not there. Not that great. So it's still something you would helmet off, or if you want to use Assimilate. This build was just a blank slate just to show you how the abilities work and what affects them. So the first ability is not affected by strength, but is affected by range and duration. Second ability is affected by everything: range, duration, and strength, the Holy Trinity. Third ability, just range and duration. The fourth ability scales with all three: range, strength, and duration. Range affects the explosion radius, and the conversion percent scales with strength and the enemy level. So if they're low level, well, you're not going to get that much damage. So those are the changes with Nyx. And let me show you the build I'm rocking. Again, she's not a Warframe that deals damage. She's all about crowd controlling and being evasive. So the only way that she can deal damage is with weapons and weapon buffs. So coming over here to the build, we'll start off with the Archon shards. I have 2 casting speed shards. This is a must. 2 purple shards here for equilibrium, converting health and energy or pickups, and a red shard for strength. This is what I rock. You don't necessarily have to run this, but the only 2 mandatory ones are the casting speed shards, unless you want to run natural talent on your build. Now, the helmet is, of course, Roar. It's one of the best in slot helmets right now. It's a free damage buff to your abilities and your weapons. And it also functions like a faction damage mod, so you don't have to change faction mods every time you enter a new mission. You press this, you buff yourself, allies, and your sentinels. Pretty much, it's a universal damage multiplier. Build is simple. We got growing power in the aura, PSF for the DPS increase. I have Archon stretch because this synergizes with my sentinel. Prime redirection for the large shield pool, fast deflection for the shield recharge rate, and recharge delay. You can replace this with rolling guard if you want to change out the sentinel to something else. I prefer using the worm prime for this, but if you want to use anything else, change this out to rolling guard. You're chilling. I have only 1 duration mod, and then my strength increases are coming from augur secrets, precision intensify, and molt augmented. I don't want any negative effects on my duration, so this is just a simple setup. And the final slot can be whatever you want. You want to put augments here because any augment fits onto this build. It's a free slot. So if you want to add more duration, you can. If you want to add equilibrium and replace the shards, you can. That's why it's set up like this. If you want to add more shield recharge, you can, but you don't necessarily need that because you're going to be going back and forth between overguard and instantly refreshing your shields thanks to her second ability and your sentinel. But of course, in a situation where you're getting bombarded with attacks, having some shield recharge and recharge delay does help out. So it really depends on how you want to play. And my main weapon I'll be using here is the Praetus. The only reason I'm using the Praetus is because I want to move fast, and it's a melee that you can slap on melee influence. The evolutions are simple: speed, combo, more speed, and then the final evolution depends on what you want to do. If you're running Tennokai, you don't need to run this. And if you are running Tennokai, I highly suggest running collecting ammo, grants melee combo counter. And the build is simple. You got melee influence, the most overpowered melee arcane right now. Stance is simple. You got your Tennokai here, modded for viral, electric, because to trigger melee influence, and this is it. The build is pretty simple. From a companion, running the Worm Prime and the Tazakor. Worm Prime is simple. This is the funnies build. You got negate, coolant leak, and duplex bond. These are the 2 main things here to trigger Archon stretch, and the Tazakor, of course, is modded for viral and radiation, so that I can easily get that crit chance buff on Nyx. To trigger duplex bond, you need to cast an ability that consumes 100 energy. So let's do that. And we have a buddy right here. We have another set of buddies right here. We armor strip them, and we're chilling. We can take control of one target. We have Archon Stretch going right there, as you can see. And we're chilling with energy. And our shields are topped up. It's a very simple build. And because we're running the Praetos, it gives us crazy movement across the map. There you go. And this is without Roar. If we were to activate Roar right now, we're going to be doing a lot more damage. So Roar, get our crit chance up. There you go. We just nuked that whole group of enemies. There you go. Dead. And that's what I'm rocking with my Nyx right now. It's a very comfortable build, and I can pretty much do anything. Anyway, folks, that has been it for me. I do hope you enjoyed and learned something from this video. If you did, please feel free to leave a like, share, and subscribe for more Warframe content, streams, and so much more. Enter for the description. Thanks for watching, and as always, a peace. Bye-bye now.